Hi, I'm Robert Worm, and I'll be reading you today's edition of the Fall River Herald, dated Monday, October 7th, 2024. Used car dealer faces fraud larceny charges, by Dan Medeiros. An Attleboro man who owned a used car business in Swansea was arraigned Thursday on charges that he scammed nearly 24 people out of more than $250,000 in multiple fraud schemes. Sitting handcuffed in the dock at Fall River District Court, Edward Sisiu, 46, of Attleboro, owner of Bristol County Auto Exchange at 2388 GAR Highway in Swansea, faced a litany of charges related to his dealership. 9 counts of larceny over $1,200 under false pretenses, 8 counts of forgery or misuse of a Registry of Motor Vehicles document, 13 counts of failure to deliver a title upon motor vehicle transfer, 4 counts of larceny of a motor vehicle, and 1 count of larceny by check of over $1,200. Sisiu is expected to face additional charges in the coming days, according to Swansea Police. A not guilty plea was entered on his behalf. Judge David Sorrenti ordered him held on $100,000 cash bail and revoked his bail on a pending case out of Taunton District Court, where Sisiu is accused of passing bad checks worth $15,036 to buy vehicles. Swansea Police said they have received complaints from about 25 people regarding Bristol County Auto Exchange since May. An additional 10 people have come forward since last week, when police issued a release indicating Sisiu was under investigation. According to prosecutors, so far 23 victims have filed complaints against Sisiu. Prosecutors said from October 2023 to September 2024, Sisiu engaged in a pattern of fraud where he would receive cars on loan from loan auctions, then put them on sale, up for sale at his dealership despite not having paid in full for them or possessing the title. Prosecutors said Sisiu would sell those vehicles to customers and attach fake or forged license plates, promising the title and registration paperwork would be sent to them later. Some customers were given New Jersey registrations, some of which were fake and others which were for different vehicles, prosecutors alleged. When customers reached out to Sisiu to get their paperwork, he avoided them, prosecutors said. Customers who took possession of vehicles found that they could not have passed inspection, prosecutors told the judge, with extensive framework damage or needing necessary parts like catalytic converters, tire pressure gauges, or exhaust gaskets. Prosecutors said when some customers informed Sisiu about the faulty cars, he told them to bring them to the dealership for repair. These customers did not see their cars again. In one victim's case, prosecutors alleged Sisiu defrauded a 73-year-old woman attending her son's wake by telling her that he'd sold her son a Maserati and a BMW. They said Sisiu took a fee to transport these vehicles to Massachusetts and sell them for her, but when she appeared at the dealership to question him, he did not have the cars. Prosecutors said the potential loss to victims exceeds $250,000. Bristol County Auto Exchange opened in August 2020. On Thursday, a sign was posted on the door at Bristol County Auto Exchange indicating that Swansea Police are investigating the business. It asks people looking for titles or who have issues with vehicles to notify police. I am sorry to report the BC Auto Exchange has been abandoned, the sign reads. The website for Bristol County Auto Exchange is no longer in service. A web page for the dealership says Sisiu began a career selling cars in 1999. He's a proud member of the veterans-owned business community and enjoys playing sports and spending time with his son and family, the page says. Swansea Police said the auction company still owns the vehicles owned by Bristol County Auto Exchange and is in the process of repossessing them. Defense attorney Jeremy Waxler, representing Sisiu at the arraignment, said Sisiu told him the issue was more of a misunderstanding. A $250,000 misunderstanding with 23 separate alleged victims, Sorrenti said. He tells me he was going to meet with the lending company either today or sometime very soon to get all this worked out, Waxler said. He said he fell behind and he was going to get the money. He said he can make all the victims whole again. Prosecutors noted that in addition to the open fraud case in Taunton, Ciciu has 4 defaults on his record and 2 fugitive from justice charges, and was previously on probation for previous charges in New Hampshire and Rhode Island, including drug-related offenses, filing false reports, insurance fraud, and obtaining money under false pretenses. The prosecution said that, if found guilty on these charges, he could face a sentence up to 15 years in state prison. How States Question 1 Would Alter Power, by Kinga Barandi. In addition to deciding their pick for President of the United States, Massachusetts voters in November will weigh in on 5 ballot initiatives. This is the first in a series of stories explaining each question of the Massachusetts ballot questions in the 2024 election. Question 1 asks voters whether the state auditor should be allowed to investigate the legislature. While audits are usually associated with financial questions, the state auditor is focused more on whether state departments and agencies are following existing laws and regulations pertaining to their functions. Auditor Diana DiZoglio, a former legislator who won election to her current job in 2022, has looked into a number of irregularities within state agencies, including the Cannabis Control Commission, to determine whether expired products had slipped past inspectors and been offered for sale to consumers. DiZoglio says giving her office investigative power over the legislature has broad support. Generally speaking, the question has been accepted by most folks, except the legislative leaders and their supporters, she said. But in November, Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell found that the auditor's office does not have the authority to investigate the legislative branch, a decision that was praised by House Speaker Ronald Mariano, Quincy, and Senate President Karen Spilka, Ashland. Proponents of the audit opted to pursue a ballot initiative and were able to amass enough signatures, almost 100,000, to ensure it met the requirements. DiZoglio says the question is a nonpartisan issue that has been embraced across the political spectrum, including by both the Democratic and Republican state political committees and both progressive and conservative organizations. The Tisch College Center for State Policy Analysis at Tufts University found that passing the question could give the auditor tools to pressure the legislature to act with greater clarity and in the public eye. However, it would not allow DiZoglio to delve into all legislative processes. The auditor could investigate to determine how and where the legislature is spending money, whether it complies with bidding laws and other regulations. It would not afford her license to examine votes, amendments to bills, committee appointments, or operations, according to the Tufts analysis. In other states where legislative audits are common, the scope is limited to routine operations like procurement and whether a body is following employee training standards. DiZoglio said the Massachusetts legislature has been audited 117 times throughout history and has only recently balked at being in the spotlight. According to the Ballotpedia Legislative Data Report Card compiled by the Open States Organization, Massachusetts is one of 4 states to earn an F when reviewing the adequacy, availability, and accessibility of each state's legislative data. Massachusetts shares the grade with Alabama, Kentucky, and Nebraska. Voters are fed up with the lack of access to what's happening behind closed doors in the state, DiZoglio said. Supporters of the question have donated $410,220 to the Committee for Transparent Democracy to advance the effort, according to the Office of Political and Campaign Finance. The Committee for a Transparent Democracy was formed in 2023. It has reported collecting mostly smaller donations, but with some large chunks of money, including $55,000 kicked in by the auditor herself. DeZoglio is collecting funds for the campaign through her website, diana4ma.com. That's for F-O-U-R. In addition, more than 600 volunteers hit the streets to garner the signatures to have the question placed on the November ballot. Flu vaccine may not be as effective this season. By Adriana Rodriguez. New flu data from the Southern Hemisphere suggests this year's vaccine isn't as effective against severe illness as previous iterations, a finding that may not bode well for Americans as the nation kicks off flu season. Researchers tracked the vaccine's effectiveness in five South American countries: Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Paraguay, and Uruguay, during their flu season from March to July. They found flu shots reduced the risk of hospitalizations by about 34%, according to the study published Thursday in the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. Public health experts typically expect flu vaccines to reduce hospitalization risk by closer to 50%, said Dr. Kausar Talat, Associate Professor of International Health at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. "It's a little bit disappointing," she said. "This is not the lower end of what would be expected, but not outside the range." Vaccines distributed in the U.S. target two influenza A strains, H1N1 and H3N2, and a B lineage, the same strains targeted by vaccines used in South America. A typical flu season occurs between April and September in the Southern Hemisphere and from October to May in the Northern Hemisphere. Public health experts often look at data from the Southern Hemisphere to gain insight into how Americans may experience the flu season. But they may not suffer a fate similar to their South American peers, Talat said, because multiple variables determine the outcome of a flu season. One of the most important variables is the circulating strains. It remains to be seen if the strains that appeared in South America will be the same strains that circulate in the U.S. "It's very early here. We're not seeing a lot of flu yet," Talat said. "We might have different virus strains in different proportions." Vaccination coverage is also an important factor, she said. A high flu vaccination rate will prevent the virus from spreading and infecting people who are likely to become severely ill. Even if the strains targeted by the current U.S. flu shot don't match the strains that appear in the Northern Hemisphere, studies have shown the vaccine will still provide some protection. The 2018 through 2019 influenza season is one such case. The vaccine's effectiveness during that year was an abysmal 29%, according to the CDC. But a 2020 study found the shot still prevented an estimated 4.4 million infections, 58,000 hospitalizations, and 3,500 deaths in the U.S. Sanofi and CSL Seqirus, two of the nation's largest flu vaccine manufacturers, conceded that the circulating virus strains could differ from those the World Health Organization recommended be included in this year's flu vaccine. While trends from the Southern Hemisphere offer valuable insights, they don't always predict outcomes in the U.S., according to a spokesperson for CSL Seqirus. "This is a natural phenomenon linked to the unpredictability of the influenza epidemiology. The viruses can mutate as they move across populations and geographies," said Thomas Grenier, Sanofi's head of vaccines in North America. "Vaccination remains the best preventative strategy for influenza." Fall River School community mourns loss of student. The community at Morton Middle School is mourning the loss of one of their students. In an email Thursday, October 3rd, Principal Nicholas Betancourt informed Morton families of the sudden and unexpected death of a 6th grader following a medical emergency earlier that day. "We are saddened by the loss to our school community and will make every effort to support you and your child as you need," wrote Betancourt, indicating that additional grief counselors would be on hand Friday at the 1135 North Main Street School to assist students and staff. He offered condolences to the 6th graders' parents and family, fellow students, as well as all within our community who were blessed with knowing him. In addition, Betancourt wanted to thank our first responders for their heroic efforts. Fall River Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Tracy Curley also issued a statement Friday afternoon. "On behalf of everyone at the Fall River Public Schools, our thoughts, heartfelt condolences, and support go out to the students' family and loved ones as they deal with this terrible tragedy," Curley said. "We know that this unexpected loss will raise questions and concerns and will elicit emotional responses among our students and throughout our school community. In an effort to ensure students learned of the tragedy from a trusted adult, the news was communicated to families and staff yesterday evening and was communicated to students again today during homeroom." Woman says she was sex trafficked out of Freetown home, by Frank Mulligan. A Dorchester man is being held without bail for allegedly sex trafficking a woman out of a Freetown home. Curtis Wigfall Bradford, 31, was arraigned Thursday on charges of trafficking of a person for sexual servitude, kidnapping, deriving support from prostitution, assault and battery on family household member subsequent, and assault and battery with a dangerous weapon in New Bedford District Court. State troopers and Freetown police arrested Wigfall Bradford on Wednesday morning at 35 Washburn Road in East Freetown, where he was living with the victim and another woman following an investigation, police said. State police did not name the victim in the police report, but refer to her as victim number 1. The victim said she had 4 to 5 dates per day at the home on the days when she was working. State police says the victim's availability was advertised on commercial sex websites with photos. They were able to track some of the ads through a law enforcement database called Spotlight. They typed Freetown into the search bar and came up with some of the ads, the most recent being from September 24th. They said that there had been 408 posts in Massachusetts, Florida, and Georgia since April 30th. The victim told state police they had gone on vacations to Florida, Atlanta, New Jersey, and New York at various times. The victim is in her early 20s, but has a mental capacity in the 13-year-old range, according to a past police report. The victim told police she was originally from Chicago and had been in the Boston area for 9 months to a year. She had been working as a prostitute in Boston, she said, when Curtis Wigfall Bradford and the other woman he was living with saved her. She said she was going to be sold. They took her to the Freetown address, which she thought was in Taunton. She worked as a prostitute at the address for a period of about 6 months, and was not allowed to leave, she said, though they did visit the defendant's mother in Dorchester multiple times. She said she was given drugs and was also beaten, including with belts. They were returning from one of those visits to Dorchester when she escaped, she said. She said Wigfall Bradford was mad at her for taking too large a scoop of drugs and thought she might overdose. To escape, she jumped out of their car on Route 24 southbound in Stoughton on September 25th at around 10:30 a.m. She was brought to Good Samaritan Hospital in Brockton by emergency personnel, where she told the medical staff that she was possibly involved in human trafficking, police said. She had not mentioned it at the accident site. Hospital staff called state police, who interviewed her at the hospital and began the investigation. State police said Wigfall Bradford was currently on probation out of Dorchester District Court for possession of a firearm, possession of ammunition, and possession of a Class A substance. The police report also states that Wigfall Bradford had been found guilty in 2019 and served time for kidnapping, intimidation, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and malicious destruction of property. His record also includes several unrelated arraignments for assault and battery, domestic violence, and property crimes, according to state police. Wigfall Bradford is due back in court on November 1st for a probable cause hearing. Duck Derby in Dartmouth raises over $20,000 for Mass Autobahn. It wasn't a red tide, it was a yellow tide, as thousands of yellow ducks descended upon Allen's Pond Wildlife Sanctuary in Dartmouth. Don't worry, they weren't real ducks, they were rubber, all part of the Mass Autobahn's annual Duck Derby. In its 21st year, the Duck Derby had 3,007 ducks racing on Buzzards Bay tides on September 28th, hoping to secure the top prize. A donor sponsors each duck with the fastest winning the coveted $5,000 grand prize. 5 minutes after the giant net full of ducks was released into the channel, the race was over, and Ella Monroe was the winning duck, landing Christine Monroe of Somerset first place and a $5,000 payday. A family membership to Mass Autobahn for 1 year was given to Betty Slade of Westport, whose duck, Kennan, took second place, just missing the first place mark. Earning a free Duck Derby entry for next year was David Clark of Taunton, as his duck, Large Marge, was given the unfortunate title of Slacker Quacker, which goes to the slowest duck that comes in dead last. Daniel Galley, principal at Daniel J. Galley and Associates, the lead sponsor of the Duck Derby, said yellow toy ducks took on special meaning for him when friends called him a lucky duck, after avoiding what doctors told him was a surefire lung cancer diagnosis in 2008. Everyone at DJG&A is committed to their clients' financial and personal health, which is why sponsoring Mass Autobahn's Duck Derby is the perfect way to spread our commitment to good health by enjoying the great outdoors and supporting local ecological programs, Ghali said in a press release. These color ducks helped raise more than $20,000 to support ecological and outreach projects at Allen's Pond, including salt marsh restoration, coastal waterbird monitoring, the South Coast Osprey Project, and Monarch Watch tagging. For more information about the event, visit www.massautobahn.org. Supreme Court Returns with Tough Cases by Maureen Gropp. The Supreme Court returns Monday to tackle a slew of politically charged issues: gun regulation, gender-affirming care for minors, and whether adults can be required to provide IDs to access pornographic websites. But the justices may also be pulled more directly into politics through election-related challenges both before and after the November 5th election. Democrats and Republicans have filed dozens of suits across the country over voting rules and other election matters that could be litigated all the way up to the High Court, especially if the presidential contest is close. I think there are legal issues that arise out of the political process, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson told CBS in September when asked if she's ready for the election to come before the court. So the Supreme Court has to be prepared to respond if that should be necessary. And depending on whether former President Donald Trump wins the election, the court may be asked to dive back into the criminal cases against him. In a blockbuster ruling in July, the majority granted Trump and other presidents immunity protections, but left unclear how those protections should be applied. But first, the justices must deal with the controversial cases they'll start hearing this week. One of the first cases they'll consider is whether the Biden administration can regulate ghost guns by requiring manufacturers of the untraceable weapon kits to conduct background checks on customers and mark their products with serial numbers. Like last term's case about whether bump stocks can be banned because they allow a semi-automatic weapon to mimic automatic firing, this one is not directly about the Second Amendment. It centers instead on whether the regulation is consistent with the plain meaning of existing laws, or if the administration is rewriting gun control laws, which only Congress can do. In another case challenging regulatory authority, the court will decide if the Food and Drug Administration is unfairly blocking the marketing of flavored vape pens. The industry contends the FDA has imposed a de facto ban on most flavored e-cigarettes. The FDA counters that it has approved some tobacco-flavored e-cigarette products while rejecting more than 1 million with candy and other flavors that would be appealing to children. Both the e-cigarette and ghost gun cases are coming to the Supreme Court from the New Orleans-based 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, a popular venue for challenging federal agency activity, notes Allison LaCroix, a professor at the University of Chicago Law School. And such challenges have often found a receptive audience at the Supreme Court, which, LaCroix said, has told us that it is interested in overseeing what administrative agencies are doing. State, not federal, regulations are the subject of 2 other hot-button cases. In one from Texas, the court is being asked to decide if the free speech of adults to view certain online pornography is overly burdened by requiring age verification. While Texas says it's trying to protect children, the American Civil Liberties Union has joined the websites in arguing that online verification is not the same as showing a driver's license to buy alcohol or explicit magazines. Uploading identifying information risks exposing users to hackers or accidental leaks, they argue. They don't trust what is going to happen with their information after they put it on the internet, lawyer Jeremy Broggie, who litigates constitutional and regulatory issues, said recently at the Libertarian Cato Institute. Many states are experimenting with how to protect kids online, Broggie said, increasing their potential impact of the pornography case. Many states, about half, have also tried to ban gender-affirming care for minors. The court will hear the Biden administration's challenge to a ban in Tennessee. The administration, as well as the ACLU, which represents families challenging the ban, argues the law discriminates on the basis of sex. A teenager whose sex assigned at birth is male can be prescribed testosterone, they say, but a teenager assigned female at birth cannot. Tennessee declares that the state has an interest in encouraging minors to appreciate their sex, and in prohibiting treatments that might encourage minors to become disdainful of their sex. The district court ruled against the state, but the Cincinnati-based 6th U.S. Court of Appeals said the law does not discriminate. Using testosterone to treat gender dysphoria is not the same as using it to treat, for example, a boy born with an extra copy of the X chromosome, a condition that leads to lower production of testosterone, the court said in a split opinion. Deepak Gupta, an appellate lawyer who tracks the Supreme Court's work, said the case has enormous significance for the power of states to regulate medical care for minors, and may also serve as a referendum on a landmark Supreme Court decision from 2020 that said discrimination based on a person's gender identity is a form of sex discrimination. This is obviously the blockbuster case of the term, Gupta said, and a term that seems otherwise to be designed to be sleepy. We've reached the halfway point of our program, and regular listeners are aware that at this stage of our broadcast we move to the obituaries. Robert R. Menard, 85, passed away unexpectedly on Friday, October 4th, at Charlton Memorial Hospital. Funeral to which relatives and friends are invited will be Friday, October 11th, from the Potter Funeral Home, 81 Reed Road, Westport, at 10 a.m., followed by a mass of Christian burial at St. George Church, Westport, at 11 a.m. Calling hours Thursday, 4 to 7 p.m. Interment in Notre Dame Cemetery, Fall River. For directions or to view the full obituary, please visit www.potterfuneralservice.com. Israel hits northern Gaza, killing dozens. At least 24 people were killed and 93 others wounded when Israeli airstrikes hit a mosque and a school sheltering displaced people in the Gaza Strip early on Sunday, the Hamas-run Gaza government media office said. Palestinian health officials said at least another 20 people had been killed since Saturday night in northern Gaza, since the army sent tanks into areas there for the first time in months, while urging residents to go to what it called safe zones in the south. The Israeli military said it had conducted precise strikes on Hamas terrorists, who are operating within command and control centers embedded in Ibn Rashid School and the Shuhada al-Aqsa Mosque in the area of Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. Hamas rejects Israeli accusations it uses civilian facilities such as schools, hospitals, and mosques for military purposes. The strikes on the mosque and the school came as the war between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas in the enclave approaches its first anniversary, and as Israel has been expanding its actions in Lebanon. Hamas attacked southern Israel on October 7, 2023, killing 1,200 people and taking about 250 as hostages, according to Israeli tallies. Israel's subsequent military assault on Gaza has killed nearly 42,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza's health ministry. It has also displaced nearly all of the enclave's 2.3 million people, caused a hunger crisis, and led to genocide allegations at the World Court that Israel denies. The Hamas-run Gaza government media office said Israel had struck 27 houses, schools, and displacement shelters across Gaza in the past 48 hours. These crimes take place amid difficult health conditions in Gaza Strip, and where the remaining hospitals are unable to provide good medical and health care as the number of injured and patients increase every day, it said. The army on Saturday issued new evacuation orders in parts of Nusayrat camp in the central Gaza Strip, just north of Deir al-Balah, forcing hundreds of families to leave their homes. The military statement said its forces aimed to operate against Hamas militants who waged attacks from the territory. Meanwhile, Israeli tanks pushed into the northern Gaza areas of Beit Lahia and Jabalia overnight, and planes hit several houses, killing at least 20 people, according to medics. The Israeli military said its forces were operating in Jabalia, the largest of Gaza Strip's 8 historic refugee camps, to fight Hamas militants, dismantle military infrastructure, and prevent Hamas from regrouping. Before the start of the operation, the Air Force attacked dozens of military targets to support the maneuvering forces, including weapons depots, underground structures, terrorist cells, and additional military structures, the Israeli military statement said. The operation will continue as necessary, with systematic strikes and the radical destruction of terrorist structures in the region, it added. It directed residents to head toward humanitarian designated areas in Al-Mawasi in the southern Gaza Strip. Palestinian and UN officials say no place in the enclave is safe, including the humanitarian zones where Israeli missiles have hit several times. Massive consecutive strikes hit Beirut's southern suburbs early on Sunday, Reuters eyewitnesses said, sending booms across the Lebanese capital and sparking flashes of red and white for nearly 30 minutes, visible from several miles away. Israel said its Air Force had conducted a series of targeted strikes on a number of weapons storage facilities and terrorist infrastructure sites belonging to the Hezbollah terrorist organization in the area of Beirut. The Israeli military said that before the strike, it took steps to mitigate the risk of harming civilians, including advancing warnings to the population in the area. For days, Israel has bombed Beirut suburbs considered strongholds for the Iran-backed armed group, killing its leader, Syed Hassan Nasrallah, and possibly his potential successor. A Lebanese security source said on Saturday that Hashem Safieddine, the potential successor, had been out of contact since Friday, after an Israeli airstrike near the city's international airport that was reported to have targeted him. The Israeli military said it eliminated Nasrallah in a strike on the group's Central Command headquarters in Beirut on September 27th. Hezbollah confirmed he had been killed. Lebanese security sources said Israeli strikes since Friday on Dahiya, a residential area, and Hezbollah strongholds south of central Beirut have kept rescue workers from scouring the site of Thursday night's attack. Hezbollah has not commented on Safieddine. His loss would be another blow to the group and its patron Iran. Israeli strikes across the region in the past year, sharply accelerated in recent weeks, have devastated Hezbollah's leadership. Israel has been expanding its actions in Lebanon. On Saturday, it made its first strike in the northern city of Tripoli, a Lebanese security official said, and Israeli troops launched raids in the south. Before the recent upsurge, exchanges of fire between Israel and Hezbollah had been mostly limited to the Israel-Lebanon border area, in parallel to Israel's war in Gaza against Hamas. Israeli military spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said on Saturday that Israel had killed 440 Hezbollah fighters in its ground operations in southern Lebanon and destroyed 2,000 Hezbollah targets. Hezbollah has not released death tolls. Israel says it stepped up its assault on Hezbollah to ensure the safe return of tens of thousands of citizens to homes in northern Israel, bombarded by the group since last October 8th. Israeli authorities said on Saturday that 9 Israeli soldiers had been killed in southern Lebanon so far. The Israeli assault has also killed hundreds of ordinary citizens, Lebanese officials say, and forced 1.2 million people, almost a quarter of the population, from their homes. September jobs report beats expectations. By Medora Lee. America's job market roared back in September as U.S. employers added 254,000 jobs, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The number was higher than the average monthly gain of 203,000 over the previous 12 months, according to the Bureau, and the strongest reading since March. Food and drink industries, healthcare, government, social assistance, and construction led the job gains, which blew past economists' average forecast for 140,000 new jobs, and exceeded the upwardly revised August tally of 159,000 new positions. The unemployment rate also unexpectedly fell to 4.1% from August's 4.2%. The strong report put to rest ideas the Federal Reserve may continue aggressively lowering rates to keep the labor market afloat after a sluggish summer of hiring, economists said. The Fed lowered its benchmark Fed funds rate last month for the first time in more than 4 years by a half percentage point, or 50 basis points, to a range of 4.75% to 5%, from a 23-year high of 5.25% to 5.5%. It also penciled in shaving another half point by year end. Don't even talk about a 50 basis point cut in November. It's not on the table, said Tim McDonough, Key Wealth Senior Portfolio Manager. Here are some of the job categories that saw big employment gains in September. Food services and drinking establishments, 69,400 jobs added. Social assistance, 26,500 jobs added. Construction, 25,000 jobs added. Local government, 16,000 jobs added. Retail trade, 15,600 jobs added. Home health care services, 12,700 jobs added. Hospitals, 11,500 jobs added. A few industries that shed jobs in September. Temporary help services, 13,800 jobs lost. Warehouse and storage, 11,000 jobs lost. Transportation equipment manufacturing, 5,200 jobs lost. Here are a few of the more encouraging data points from the robust employment report for September. Average hourly earnings rose by 0.4% to $35.36 in September, which works out to an annual increase of 4%. Both figures exceeded estimates from economic forecasters. Restaurants and bars had a great month. The hospitality industry added 69,000 jobs in September, sweeping well past the average monthly gain of 14,000 jobs in the prior 12 months. The unemployment rate for black workers dipped to 5.7% in September, down from 6.1% in August, and the jobless rate for Hispanic workers dipped to 5.1% in September from 5.5% in August. On the downside, the average work week edged down by 0.1 hour in September to 34.2 hours, and the percentage of people with more than one job increased in September to 5.3% from 5% the month before. Most economists now expect the Fed to slow the pace of rate cuts, trimming a quarter point instead of slicing off another half point when it meets again November 6th through 7th. The underlying health of the labor market remains healthier than initially thought, with private job creation still strong, said John Chung, head of equities and markets at Investor's Edge. The Fed will be in no rush to cut either, as the unemployment rate is still relatively low and is still quite some way off the Fed's projections of 4.4% to 4.5%. According to Shruti Mishra, Bank of America U.S. economist, the gangbuster September employment report led us to change our call for the November Fed meeting from a 50 basis point cut to 25 basis points. A few even questioned if the Fed would cut at all in November. Unemployment rate going down to 4.1% might bring the word pause back into the Fed's vocabulary, McDonough said. The broad S&P 500 index, blue-chip Dow, and tech-heavy NASDAQ indexes all rallied Friday on the strong jobs report, which was just enough to wipe out losses from earlier in the week on nervousness over Middle East tensions and port strikes. The S&P 500 rose 0.9% to 5,751.07, while the NASDAQ composite jumped 1.22% to 18,137.85. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added 341.16 points, or 0.81%, to close at a record high of 42,352.75. Many market strategists are optimistic for more gains. What we have now is an economy that is expanding, a job market which is solid if not strong, and a Federal Reserve that has not only stopped raising rates, but is actually cutting them, said Chris Zaccarelli, Chief Investment Officer at Independent Advisor Alliance. This is an excellent backdrop for owning equities. Inflation has been trending lower, which allowed the Fed to feel confident in pivoting to focus on maximum employment, the other half of its dual mandate. It slashed rates aggressively last month to help keep the job market strong. Some economists worry the Fed may have called victory over inflation too soon. On an annual basis, average hourly earnings ticked up to 4%, the strongest since May and above the recent pace of inflation, helping to restore buying power lost when prices were soaring, said Mark Hamrick, senior economic analyst at Bankrate. Though that's good for workers, some worry higher wages and Middle East tensions could reignite inflation. Oil prices have spiked this week by the most in nearly 2 years on fears escalating strikes between Israel, Lebanon, and Iran could disrupt oil supply. 2 Italian firms accused over flawed Boeing parts, by Francesca Landini. Italian prosecutors on Saturday accused 7 people and 2 subcontractors of crimes including fraud and breaching airplane safety rules following an investigation into suspected flawed parts produced by an Italian company for Boeing. The prosecutors launched their investigation in late 2021 after Boeing said some parts for its 787 Dreamliner plane, supplied by a company working for Italian aerospace group Leonardo, had been improperly manufactured. Investigators found that 2 Italian subcontractors used cheaper and non-compliant forms of titanium and aluminum to make certain parts, saving significant sums of money on their raw material costs, the prosecutor said in a statement, without naming the subcontractors or the 7 people. This resulted in the realization of airplane parts with significantly lower static and stress resistance characteristics, with repercussions on aviation safety, the prosecutors in the southern city of Brindisi said. 2 sources familiar with the matter told Reuters that former Leonardo supplier manufacturing process specification and its now bankrupt predecessor company, Processi Speciali, were the 2 firms at the center of the probe. MPS owner Antonio Ingrosso and his father, Vincenzo, who headed Processi Speciali, were 2 of the 7 people involved in the probe. The 2 men are convinced that they have acted respecting fully the law, their lawyer told Reuters. The 7 people and 2 subcontractors will now be given time to present any new evidence in their defense before the prosecutors decide whether to request a judge to call a trial. Aerospace experts working with prosecutors certified at least 4,829 non-compliant components made of titanium and 1,158 made of aluminum, the prosecutors said. The expert work and investigations concluded that some non-compliant structural components could, in the long run, create harm to the safety of the aircraft, requiring the U.S. company to initiate an extraordinary maintenance campaign of the aircraft involved, they said, adding Boeing and Leonardo were victims of the alleged crimes and had cooperated with the probe. Leonardo and Boeing declined to comment. Who are Greater Fall River's top high school female athletes in 2024? By Steven Sanchez. The 2023 fall season is at the midway point of the season for most Fall River high school sports teams. Atlanta's Charter, Joseph Case, Diamond, Durfee, Somerset Berkeley, and Westport are making a run to see which team finishes strong in the postseason. With that in mind, teams turn to their reliable leaders to guide them through. Here are 24 athletes to watch in the 2024 fall season in local girls' high school sports. Girls soccer. Gianna Botello, Joseph Case. Botello is a returning midfielder for the Cardinals this fall. The Case junior star was appointed captain by her team and brings positivity, patience, and strong soccer IQ to the field. She was a Herald News All-Scholastic second-teamer. Lila Krozik, Diamond. Krozik sets the tone on defense every game for the Bengals. The Diamond senior captain was the Defensive Player of the Year her freshman and sophomore years. She was a Herald News All-Scholastic second-teamer. Caitlin Coutu, Durfee. Coutu is back for her final season for the Hilltoppers in 2024. The Durfee senior striker winger tallied 11 goals and had 7 assists last season for the SEC champions. She finished third in points with 29. Madeline Hargraves, Durfee. Hargraves, a forward, is ready for another great season for the Hilltoppers this fall. The junior captain had a team-high 15 goals and 5 assists in 2023. She was second in points with 35 and was awarded the SEC Most Valuable Player. Abigail Saunders, Durfee. Saunders was all about defense in 2023 for the SEC champions Hilltoppers. She helped Durfee achieve an unbeaten 14-game streak and played a role in the 6 shutouts during that span. Saunders was the team's Defensive Player of the Year. Emily Fernandez, Somerset Berkeley. Fernandez, a midfielder, is one of the veteran leaders of a young and talented Raiders squad in 2024. The sophomore captain was named a Herald News second-team All-Scholastics in 2023. Madeline Willis, Somerset Berkeley. Willis had a solid season as a netminder for the Raiders in 2023. The SBR junior goalkeeper finished with 181 saves and averaged 9 saves per game. She was named a League All-Star and Herald News All-Scholastic. Lily Veraka, Westport. Veraka is coming off a record-breaking season as a 7th grader for the Wildcats this fall. She scored a team-high 22 goals. The Westport star had 5 game winners and was 4 for 4 on penalty kicks. Field hockey. Emma Bouchard, Joseph Case. Bouchard is a fast and essential player up front for the Cardinals this fall. The 3-year varsity player was a Herald News All-Scholastic second-teamer last season. Skylar Demeronville, Joseph Case. Demeronville is a 4-year varsity player who plays a strong defense for the Cardinals. The junior captain and South Coast Conference All-Star also helped out in midfield. Demeronville was a Herald News All-Scholastic last year. Casey Curran, Durfee. Curran is back for her final season with the Hilltoppers. The senior forward tied for the team lead in goals with 14, and she dished out 14 assists in 2023. She is a 2-time League All-Star and 2-time Herald News All-Scholastics. Elia Delisle, Durfee. Delisle is set to play her final season in a Hilltopper uniform this fall. The senior midfielder scored 11 goals and assisted on 6 others in 2023. The Stonehill-bound athlete is a 2-time All-Star and 2-time Herald News All-Scholastics. Emily Carr, Somerset Berkeley. Carr hopes to duplicate her junior season when she netted 23 goals for the semi-finalist Raiders in 2023. The senior-junior left winger also contributed 4 assists. She was named a Herald News All-Scholastic. Addie Finlaw, Somerset Berkeley. Finlaw brings a lot of energy to the Raiders' offense in 2024. The junior forward recorded 7 goals and had 9 assists in 2023. She was named a League All-Star and Herald News All-Scholastic. Michaela Grace, Westport. Grace stepped up her game as a freshman for the Wildcats in 2023. The sophomore center midfield finished with 2 goals, 2 assists, and 2 defensive saves in 2023. She was named a Herald News All-Scholastic and League All-Star. Colleen Smith, Westport. Smith competes in her final season for the Wildcats in 2024. The Westport senior tri-captain and Herald News All-Scholastic second-teamer plays a tough center midfield. She finished with a goal and an assist, along with a defensive save in 2023. Girls volleyball. Madeline Botello, case. Botello had a breakout season in her first year as starter for the Cardinals in 2023. The junior hitter was second on case with kills, 212, and finished in the SEC top 5 in kills. She was also a solid defender in the back row with 230 digs. Casey Lynch, diamond. Lynch takes over the duties at the net for the Bengals this fall. The Diamond senior outside hitter leads the team in kills, is a good server, and a strong defender. Jocelyn Adurno, Durfee. Adurno, a junior outside hitter, has 2 years of varsity experience for the Hilltoppers. She led Durfee in kills, 103, and was a force at the net with 15 solo blocks in 2023. The Durfee senior finished with 30 aces and played great defense with 62 digs. Corey Tickle, Somerset Berkeley. Tickle is returning for her final season for the Raiders. The SBR captain begins her second year as the varsity libero after having 332 digs last season. She was an honorable mention SEC All-Star and Herald News All-Scholastic. Zoe Sylvain, Westport. Sylvain is a middle hitter that plays all around for the Wildcats. The Westport 4-year senior finished with 28 blocks, 62 kills, 54 assists, 30 digs, 110 service points, and 54 aces in 18 games in 2023. She was a Herald News All-Scholastic. Cross country, Alexa Petter, diamond. Petter was one of the top runners for the Bengals from a season ago. She finished with a personal best time with a 22 minutes 1 second for the 5K race. The Diamond Runners was a Herald News All-Scholastic. Shayla Harrison, Durfee. The Hilltopper runner has gotten off to a fast start in the 2024 season. So far, Harrison has the most top 3 finishes during 5K races in the fall. Peyton Morosco, Somerset Berkeley. Morosco was one of the top runners for the Raiders in 2023. She was named a South Coast Conference Honorable Mention and Herald News All-Scholastic as a freshman. The SBR sophomore had a personal best time of 23 minutes 5 seconds in 2023. Potential breakout year. Girls soccer. Brooke Adams, Joseph Case. Alex Ferreira, Joseph Case. Julia Lopes, Joseph Case. Rachel Silva, Durfee. Noah Beaudry, Somerset Berkeley. Ariana Cecia, Somerset Berkeley. Julie Costa, Somerset Berkeley. Mackenzie Pyre, Somerset Berkeley. Layla Venancio, Somerset Berkeley. Ella Camara, Westport. Julia George, Westport. Tess Silva, Westport. Field hockey. Addie Carrero, Joseph Case. Avery Plant, Joseph Case. Emma Plant, Joseph Case. Mauve Richardson, Joseph Case. Mara Richardson, Joseph Case. Peyton Botello, Durfee. Lily Cook, Durfee. Alina Emery, Durfee. Avery Mata, Durfee. Karis Botello, Somerset Berkeley. Ryan Crook, Somerset Berkeley. Mara Kennedy, Somerset Berkeley. Julie Pacheco, Somerset Berkeley. Bella Bob, Westport. Emma Bassett, Westport. Kylie DeCambra, Westport. Maddie Mellink, Westport. Jada Thurston, Westport. Girls volleyball. Alana Martinez, Joseph Case. Nicole Rebello, Joseph Case. Madison Silva, Joseph Case. Abby Lavoie, diamond. Gloria Moniz, diamond. Angela Nahoreg, diamond. Cara Rego, diamond. Autumn Resendez, diamond. Casey Carvalho, Durfee. Riley Curran, Durfee. Regan Gibney, Durfee. Victoria Gomes, Durfee. Samantha Como, Somerset Berkeley. Caitlin Ferrara, Somerset Berkeley. Lauren Canus, Somerset Berkeley. Kayla Bossy, Westport. Kylie Hazel, Westport. Jada Paquita, Westport. And Talia Raish, Westport. Cross Country. Grace Kayada, Somerset Berkeley. And that's all I have time for. This is your reader, Robert Worm, saying thanks for listening.